Your attention, masters, mistresses. All systems functional for the Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, my name's Rich McDonald, and I played David Mason in Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and you're listening to Everything Geek podcast.
Hey everybody, you're listening to Everything Geek podcast. Thanks for listening.
Hey, it's Leif Gaffert. I played Uncle Ben's killer in The Amazing Spider-Man, and you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast.
Hello, I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldovar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek podcast.
You're listening to the Everything Geek podcast, bringing you interviews from your favorite films and TV shows every week, and all of the latest news. Here's your host, Rory Williamson.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast. I'm your host Rory, and joining me today is a very special guest. We have Oliver Wyman, best known as the voice of Aster Phoenix in Yu-Gi-Oh! ARC-V and Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Zigfried von Schroeder, Aknadin, Fortune Salim, Dr. Alex Brisbane, and Alexander the Great in Yu-Gi-Oh!, the second voice of Rex Goodwin and the voice of Alex in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, Brier, Neo-Spacian Aqua Dolphin, Freed the Brave Wanderer, and Guardian of the Labyrinth Shield in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, the original voice of Drew and the voice of Glalie, Quilava, Zigzagoon, Medicham, Argosteel, Banks, Salvador, Old Man Swamp and Vladimir in Pokémon, Big the Cat and Pachamac in Sonic X, Wizgis in Winx Club, Pierre Parrybo in Viva Piñata, Jango and Onion in One Piece, Professor Honeycutt, Fugitoid and Mr. in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Morty in Shaman, Progress and Now in Outlanders, and Commissioner James Gordon in The Dark Knight Rises, the mobile game. He also recently reprised the role of Aster Phoenix for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, as well as the currently ongoing ARC-V series. How are you today, sir?
I'm very well, Rory. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for asking me.
And I have to confess, I probably should have asked about one of those Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reels before we went live. It's the Fugitoid. I didn't.
That's right.
Is that actually right?
That is correct. The Fugitoid, and that is one of the first roles I did at 4Kids, and I'm very proud of that. I'm a big comic book fan from way back. As I told you earlier, I used to work at Forbidden Planet in New York City, which is the big science fiction comic book store. It's all over the place. You have them in Ireland, you have them in England. But I'd been a fan for many years, and many people don't know that the Fugitoid actually predates the Turtles. It was Peter Laird's first character, his first comic book, and it's been his baby, really, for years, and he picked me to play the Fugitoid. So as a comic book fan, that was doubly delightful for me to have somebody like that, a legend in the industry, pick me to play his favorite character.
That's fantastic. Can you tell us how you got into acting originally?
Well, to be honest, I sort of followed in my brother's footsteps. My brother's name is Nick Wyman. He's a well-known actor in the industry. Not so much. He hasn't had a lot of big parts, but people in theater and film know him very well. He was actually president of the Actors Equity Association for a few years, and he's best known. He's done a lot of film. You've certainly seen him before. His biggest role was probably Targo, the right-hand man of the villain in Die Hard with a Vengeance, the third Die Hard movie. He was this tall, blonde, blue-eyed Eastern European explosives expert that got to beat up Bruce Willis at the end of the movie, and I've never laughed so hard in a movie theater in my life. as I did when I got to watch my brother beat up Bruce Willis. But he back when I was I was 8 years old, way back in the 70s, and he was dating a woman who was a dance instructor for a group called Acting by Children, and it was a theater group for children. We met on Saturday mornings and rehearsed for 6 weeks, and then put on a musical, all original musicals. And the first show I was in there was called Country Air, and the star was Jason Alexander, who ended up becoming George Costanza on Seinfeld. So that's my entree into the world of acting as an 8-year-old.
That's very cool. I'm sure your brother did not let you forget the fact that he got to beat up Bruce Willis, even if it was just pretend.
Well, honestly, you couldn't imagine a more unlikely role for my brother, who is just a sweetheart. We were all amazed when he got cast as a villain in this movie, because he usually plays very silly, goofy characters. He's very tall and usually ends up playing character roles that are very far from villain. So that was a real treat. I still have one of the gold bricks that they used as a prop when they stole all the gold from the Federal Reserve in New York City. I love that movie.
That's very cool. Can you tell me how you were originally cast in Yu-Gi-Oh?
That I think the first part I played in Yu-Gi-Oh was Aknadin. I'm pretty sure, because that was, I think, the end of the original series. It's all a blur, but I had been doing several other shows. I was doing Shaman King. I had been working on Pokémon. I think at that time Viva Piñata was going on, so I was doing that. And there were very, initially at 4Kids, there were really not that many people doing voices. There were about a dozen of us, and there's only so many times you can use Wayne Grayson. So so they called me in for that. But Wayne is another, a friend and fellow fan. He loves comic books and all that stuff, and he and I really bonded over all that.
That's really great. But I'm sure he might not approve of that comment, though, in regard to you can't cast him in everything. Although I think he's one of the few actors who has had a role in every Yu-Gi-Oh show, bit part or otherwise. So
yeah,
maybe they do want to keep casting him. But anyway, in regards to the original series, now I could be wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong or anything or making assumptions, but Aknadin was introduced in episode 201, whereas Zigfried was introduced in episode 185. Now,
oh really?
Yeah, I don't know if maybe they record at different episodes at different times, but okay, so maybe Zigfried
no, it
was
must have
first.
been. I think so, yeah, and that is. And I know this is one of your questions, if you don't mind me skipping ahead. Zigfried was definitely my favorite character to play in Yu-Gi-Oh! Absolutely. Villains are more fun than heroes generally, and he was quirky. He was one of the funniest. I had so much fun voicing that character. And recently, I watched one of the old episodes, and I thought to myself, oh gosh, I'm just gonna cringe watching this. I'm gonna be so embarrassed. But I was really pleased with the work I had done. I really enjoyed that character a lot, and we took pains to make sure he wasn't too silly, because he was a villain. We didn't want anyone to laugh at this guy, but he was such an outrageous character, and so mean. He was really mean, which is fun sometimes, to be sort of let out your dark side. So I loved that character, and it must have been. I'm trying to remember the name of the woman who directed us. I'm terrible with names. But we had a lot of fun doing that show, working with Zigfried.
Yeah, that's really great, and he definitely was an interesting character, though we haven't really seen a character like him since, like, when he said Little Munchkin in one episode, like, that was funny, that's iconic to me, like, it was just so unexpected, but so funny at the same time.
He was great. He was great.
Yeah, I mean, Siegfried was your favorite, but of all the Yu-Gi-Oh characters you did, which would you say was the most challenging?
He may also have been the most challenging, I think, because he had the German accent, which I always had to make sure didn't fade away or drift into some other accent. And also because he was a ridiculous character and outrageous, but we never wanted him to lose his edge. We never wanted him to appear silly, but at the same time we wanted him to have this, he was very effeminate. He loved roses. He was, the pink hair, everything. We wanted to be careful that it wasn't we're never mocking the character, that we were always keeping him true to him, without making him silly. And when I think back, whenever I work on anime or any animation, it's all, you have to have a director there and an engineer as second and third ears to keep you in character, because so many characters, especially with Yu-Gi-Oh, where we all played half a dozen characters, you have to be careful that you don't, sometimes I would do Aster and they'd go, yeah, that sounds a bit too much like this character. You gotta bring it back here. There was, I'm trying to remember the line that my friend Joe would always play. He's the engineer. He would always play one line for Aster in my head, and I always thought it was such an unkind line. Can't remember who he was talking to, but he goes, "Were there tears?" So
yeah, that one's a mystery to me, and I'm a big Yu-Gi-Oh fan.
I'll have to see if I can find that, because it just for years, and to the point where I can hear it in my head now. He doesn't have to play the reference line. I can just go, "Were there tears?" And that's my Aster voice, because that's what Aster was. He was really kind of a jerk initially. I was concerned that people weren't going to like him because he was so arrogant, but as I have learned over the years, and especially from the tournament that I attended last year, he has the best cards, and that's one of the reasons I think he's such an enormously popular character. He has the best deck. It's one of those things, like I have a keychain of Pot of Greed now that I got from Dilphosaur, who actually came to get my autograph at the tournament last year, and it's one of my, because you got to have that in your deck. I don't know if you play Yu-Gi-Oh, but that's like, especially if you're going to play an Aster deck, you got to have Pot of Greed. That's just like an essential. I play Hearthstone myself, which is a whole nother thing, but. Yeah, I love this stuff, and I've been thinking about getting into the Yu-Gi-Oh game and even playing online as Aster Phoenix, but I don't know. That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, that would be epic, and I do actually play the game myself, and I'm working on building my own Aster deck, actually, so...
See?
Yeah.
Best cards. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it would just have been so nice, but way too easy if they just offer up the whole Aster deck like they do with the main characters. But no, they have to be difficult and put them all in boosters and all that. But so can you tell me how you found out that the Yu-Gi-Oh crew wanted you to reprise the role of Aster for the ongoing ARC-V series?
Oh, sure. I got an email from the woman in charge of production at 4Kids, and she asked if I was available. The Yu-Gi-Oh is recorded in New York City, almost entirely, I think. And I don't live in the city anymore. I moved up. I live in the mountains of New York State, so I'm about 2.5 hours from the city. But I'm more than happy to come down for any animation work, any work at all, really. But animation is what I love. I know I mentioned to you before we began the podcast, Rory, you and I were talking, and I mentioned that I am a huge fan of comic books and video games and cartoons. So this is always a treat for me. Always a treat to do this stuff. So as soon as they asked me to do it, I said, I'll be there. You tell me where to go, I'll be there happily.
That's really great. Was it a challenge for you to get back into his character, or did you have to rewatch anything from GX to get into his mindset, or were you just confident right away that I can do Aster again?
I remembered Aster very well. The real challenge was I will be 52 this year, and the fact that I'm still cast to play a teenage boy in a cartoon is, well, testament, if not to my ability, to my director's ability to keep me in character. But they always had to play the one direction, the one comment I almost always got. Although towards the end of the sessions, I'd be better about self-correcting. But I always get Darren would always say to me, "That was great, loved it. Just bring it down a little bit because you're starting to sound older, starting to sound like Raphael and the Ninja Turtles. It's a teenager that sounds like this." But we always gave Frank a hard time about that. But that's what the direction was. They wanted Raphael had to talk like that, so that's what they got. They got a guy who talks like this and is, a 15-year-old kid. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, it's always a challenge when you're playing a character much younger, and you want to, keep it real. You got to remember.
Oh yeah, but I'm really this guy. I don't have that. I don't have my real voice.
And that's too silly for Aster. At that point I would have Darren in my ear going, play the reference for him again, please. So.
Yeah. Clearly Darren didn't inherit the tears joke.
Were there tears? We're gonna have to find that episode.
Yeah.
Because I always thought, this is something just a little off topic, but the thing that I always laugh about is the fact, Aster wears his Dual Academy uniform everywhere, which is kind of like nobody else wears this, and I always joke that he looks like he just came off a shoot for the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band with the epaulets and the whole thing. So I was like, oh yes. But so I always enjoyed that. And sometimes, so it's so interesting. I'm sure you realize this. Sometimes you can see how they have different artists on different episodes of the same series, and some episodes you look at Aster and I'm like, yeah, he looks. But then some episodes I'm like, hey, I'm really well drawn today. I look really good. My hair looks great. I thought, and I have to say, of all these, all the duelists in Yu-Gi-Oh, I think he's one of the better looking duelists. So I was always very proud of that. He had good hair, didn't have like a plant in his hair like Yuya or any of that. He was. I'm always making fun of the other guys because, like I said, Aster. All the girls have a crush on Aster. So
It's actually funny because there is a joke in the Yu-Gi-Oh fandom. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. That Yuya and the other Yu boys, Yugo, Yuri, and Yuto, all of that. There's a joke in the fandom that all of their hairs are based on fruit. So I'm not sure if you made that joke knowing that, but it's actually a joke in the fandom too.
No, I didn't. It makes sense. That's exactly. That was the thing I was like, who's the kid with the plant in his hair, and why do I have to fight him?
Yeah.
Why does he have a plant in his hair? I don't understand.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun recording this show. If you could hear the outtakes, hoo boy.
Yeah, I really wish I could, that's for sure. And I did actually rewatch a GX episode where a number of the girls were crushing on Aster, actually, so... Yeah, that was a fun thing. And then Alexis, who's one of my other favorite GX characters, like Aster. It was hilarious because there's a scene where she's in the crowd with the rest of Jaden's friends, and then is going to walk off, like she says something about looking for Jaden or something, and the other friends all just crowd around her and are like, no, we know that you're going over to Aster's side, and make her sit down. And she just blushes angrily.
Now, was that you would know this, was that Erica Schroeder? Did she play Alexis?
No, that was it was originally an actress called Priscilla Everett, then it was Anna Morrow, but whether either of those are aliases, like, that's the names that are in the credits, so...
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've met either of them, so I can tell you if they're real or not. But Erica has been doing this for a long, long time. She was the original... oh, God. See, I told you I'm terrible with names. Who's the main... Yuffie? No. Who's the main character in... You're laughing at my lack of memory. Who's the main character? Who's the main character in One Piece?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You don't cross over. Okay.
No, I'm mostly Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon, so...
Fans and fellow geeks are listening to this and going, "You idiot! That's so-and-so! You should know that!" That was another one of those... That was one of my favorite shows to work on because it was so insane.
Yeah.
And Jango was this crazy... Jango was a crazy mix between Michael Jackson and the lead singer from Aerosmith, Steve Tyler. I mean, he was, just like crazy, insane. You'll have to watch that show.
Yeah, I will now for sure. I'm pretty sure that's going in a blooper reel sometime. Just another reason for listeners to laugh at me. And for the record, it was funny because I had my hand over my mouth trying not to laugh when you made that mistake, and then you accused me of laughing when I was trying not to, so I just laughed instinctively. That's hilarious.
It's always good. Oh, never stifle a laugh.
Yeah. Now, before we were doing this podcast, obviously, a few years ago, one of the things you told me was that you were surprised Aster never became a villain on GX, as he was originally an anti-hero, of course, before becoming one of the good guys. Like, he was there with the villain Sartorius, but he never, went fully, villainous. But, like, it's interesting because the alternate Aster in ARC-V is actually a villain when we're introduced to him. So how do you approach the ARC-V Aster in this regard?
Well, I wanted to keep him true to the Aster we know, but and I wanted to have, it's a difficult thing. You don't have a lot of opportunities to act in this, to really get these feelings out. But I wanted to convey his pride, because that's really the source of why, that's why he was not, quote unquote evil. He wasn't really evil, but why he was an antagonist, why he was a villain in this, is because of his pride for the Duel Academy. He lives for the Academy. That's everything to him. And so, and fortunately, he he redeemed himself and realized that he was being foolish. But I think the notion that he really believes in Duel Academy that is the driving force behind this character. That's his motivation. So I hoped I was able to convey that, because he really was a jerk, and I wanted to give him some sort of basis for being that, and make it clear that it's as is the problem with so many villains today. Pride is what makes them blind to their own faults, their own failures.
For sure. What would you say were the biggest challenges you have faced while working on any of the Yu-Gi-Oh shows?
Keeping the challenge, like I said, the challenge is always staying true to the character voice, especially doing, like I said, a character that's much younger. I have to keep that. And then the other challenge, and I discovered this at the tournament last year. The real challenge is screaming a lot. Because I'd look at a line and go, okay, I'm going to be yelling this one. Okay, let's try not to do too many takes, because that's just going to tear up my throat. But let's duel. Having to do that, 100 times, and then like I said, we did a live battle between me and Pegasus and who was Ted playing? I can't remember.
Atlas.
Jack. I was like, he wasn't. But yeah, it was Jack Atlas, Pegasus, and myself, and I destroyed them, which was great. But it was a lot of me yelling to a live audience, and by the end of that, my voice was shot. So yeah, that's keeping in character, keeping the character voice, and not destroying your own voice. Those are the challenges in doing Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, I can definitely imagine. I mean, I've interviewed a number of Yu-Gi-Oh! Actors on the podcast, and everyone says that the duels are really fun to record, but also the biggest challenge is because, you're talking more loudly than you usually would, because, you're really getting into it.
Yeah. And also, when in the duels, they're really far away from each other, so they have to yell. That was the thing that, the directors always try to keep in mind where people are, so that someone's not yelling if they're right next to somebody, or somebody who's on the other side of the stadium isn't talking to someone like this. So
yeah, absolutely. And how would you describe the experience voicing Drew in Pokemon?
I loved Drew. He was really obnoxious, but really competent. He's kind of a lot like Aster in a lot of ways. But I also loved being May's nemesis and also kind of love interest. There was a little something going on between May and Drew, as I recall, and May was voiced by Veronica Taylor, who was also the original Ash, and she is the person who introduced me to 4Kids. She and I used to do language tapes together, and the day that I met her, I was like, your voice sounds very familiar. And she said, well, actually, I'm on Pokemon. I said, really? Who do you play on Pokemon? She said, I'm Ash. And I was like, wait, you're really? So, and I said, I want to do that when I grow up. Not that I'm in any danger of growing up anytime soon, but she got me into 4Kids, and my first show there was fighting Foodons. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really great, and for the listeners' sake, if Drew's actor himself says there was a love interest, then there really was a love interest.
Well, Veronica, she's a dear friend, and she's like a sister to me. So there was nothing ever went on between she and I, but maybe between May and no, I know. I'm just being silly.
Yeah, I know. Which would you say has been the most challenging role in your career so far, and why?
In anime, the most challenging.
Could be anything, really.
Okay, in anything. Well, I did a film once. That was incredibly challenging, but that's probably because it's because of the medium and a number of reasons. But I'm trying to think of things that your listeners would know. Probably Morty in Shaman King, because he had a very distinctive voice, which I know a lot of fans did not like, but this was the direction I got. That was the voice they wanted. So it wasn't me entirely, but he was I think he was supposed to be 13, but he seemed much younger to me.
And he had a really high-pitched voice. He had one of these voices, which is kind of hard to maintain for a long time.
And yeah, and what's funny is that voice. I've met people who are like, I grew up watching that show. I love that show. And when a couple of years ago, I was actually cast as the Honey Nut Cheerios bee in commercials here in the States. I don't know if they went international, but when that came out, people online actually people who were fans of Shaman King and other anime contacted me, and they said, "Is that you? Are you the new Honey Nut Cheerios?" It was amazing to me that people recognized my voice because I haven't done that voice in a long time.
But that's I for a long time I was the squeaky guy because I was the only guy that could get up there, and all the other boys were voiced by ladies. And that's I was very very lucky to be in on that. But yeah, that was the hardest. Great. It was a lot of lines. Great show. Very dark and very funny, but definitely my favorite and my most challenging anime role.
It's very cool. My final question for you, Oliver: do you have any upcoming acting roles or any other projects that you would like to talk about?
Most of what I do these days is audiobooks. I have a studio in my house, and I sit in front of a microphone and talk to myself all day long. I do a lot of great books. I do a lot of fantasy. I did a wonderful fantasy series over the last couple of years by an Australian author named Mitchell Hogan, and the series is called The Sorcery Ascendant Sequence. And the first book is A Crucible of Souls. That's I enjoyed that tremendously because the characters, I had a relationship with these characters, and I miss them now. It's one of the most enjoyable books I've ever worked on because I really felt that I had developed these characters and made them in my mind as real as any of my friends. I do all kinds of stuff in terms of video games, cartoons, and now I find there's a lot of I'm auditioning a lot for things for the Amazon Alexa and for the Google Home and the upcoming Apple HomePod. And I had an audition not long ago that I'm really hoping pans out. It was for a Batman audio program for one of those, HomePod or Alexa. I can't remember what it was for. But they wanted me to do Mark Hamill's Joker voice, which is I am a huge Batman fan and an enormous fan of the old Batman Animated Adventures cartoon, and like all Batman fans, I consider Kevin Conroy to be Batman and Mark Hamill to be the Joker, and if I could maybe possibly get a job being, doing my tribute to Mark Hamill's perfect Joker voice, I would be absolutely thrilled. So I'll let you know about that if that becomes a thing. When I did Commissioner Gordon in that
iPod game. I think it was for iPod and iPod and Android. I had so much fun doing that because I'm an enormous Batman fan. I have been since I was a kid. I was born the year that the TV show came out, just to show you how incredibly old I am. But I was born in '66, which is the year that Batman and Star Trek came on television, and Captain Kirk and the Batman are my spiritual guides on this earth. So it's only appropriate that I should have been born that year. And that's what's going on with me. I'm a huge gamer. That's the other thing I mentioned. I'm hoping maybe this year, or if not this year, soon. I'm hoping to start streaming and doing stuff online. And I did an audiobook. One of the last books I did was about the father of virtual reality, a man who's considered to be the father of the technology, and it's tremendous fun. And that's what I do on my spare time. I have a lot of fun in VR. So yeah, that's what's going on with me.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's all of my questions for you, Oliver. But we also have a couple from some of our listeners, if that's okay.
Yeah, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, so Michael Chan has two for you. First of all, do Aster's duels against Yuya in ARC-V remind you of his duels against Jaden in GX?
You know what? I honestly can't remember the duels against Jay. My thing is they all had funny hair. None of them had hair as good as mine. Aster had the best cards and the best hair. So I do remember thinking, and this is probably just the Aster in me, but I do remember thinking, why am I not the star of this show? Why is this punk? This guy's got terrible hair. I've got epaulets on my jacket. I've got the fancy uniform. I think Aster should get his own show. Absolutely. So I do remember thinking, yeah, these upstart punks. So in that respect, yeah, that's what that was similar.
Yeah.
That was.
That's like probably the best answer. That is also a non-answer at the same time. But yeah, if that's what you remember, that's still remembering something. But as a Yu-Gi-Oh fan myself, I actually do kind of see a similarity in those duels. But
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about bad hair, though I'll tell you what fruit the U-Boy's hair looks like later on after we wrap. Yeah. And Michael would also like to know, have you ever read the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX manga before?
I have never read the manga, but I have read Shonen Jump to read just because I wanted to read the Shaman King manga, which is amazing. Really is a brilliant comic book manga. But I have not read the Yu-Gi-Oh! I should take a look at that.
Yeah, definitely. And Mark has a very specific request. You've seen it on Twitter. He would like you to say "It's Destiny" as Aster Phoenix.
Of course. I'm trying to think. There's other. Well, first of all, it's Destiny, and I know that there's other stuff. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I can remember all my heroes.
Yeah, I could give you
Double Dude,
yeah,
and Diamond Dude.
Yeah,
I love that they were all. I have to say, this is one thing. I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of references to Tenacious D, which is a TV show that Jack Black actually got his start in. But the guy who used to write the show was a big fan. So Captain Tenacious, right? Isn't there Captain Tenacious?
Yeah, that's right.
That's one of my cards. That is a reference to Tenacious and all of the D's. The fact that it was like Double Dude and Captain Tenacious and the D heroes. That was all a reference to Tenacious D. and I was always grateful to the writer. I think he was the producer too. I can't remember, but I was always grateful to him for putting that in there because I was a big fan of Tenacious D myself.
That's actually really interesting and very cool. Actually, on the subject of references, now I'm not sure if this is deliberate, but I didn't even notice this before, but I showed some of the cards I bought a month or so ago to one of my best friends, and he was just like, I instantly loved that Destiny signal card, and I just took a look at it, and I'm like, it looks like the bat signal. That's why he likes it so much.
Yep. Yep. So you've kept up with the new show, right?
I'm up to date.
So the torn, I can't remember the card, the torn card that
Smile World.
Thank you, the Smile World. I always called it McDonald's Happy Land. But the torn, someone came up to me, and this was when I was signing at the tournament last year. Someone came up to me with the torn Smile Land card and had me sign it, and I was like, "You win. You win the signing. You have the best thing for me to sign. No one else." No, I signed plenty of Diamond Dudes and plenty of Destiny Heroes, but the only one guy came up to me with the torn Smile World card, and I was like, "You win. That is the best." I wanted to get one for myself. I thought that was so cool.
That's hilarious. I was half thinking about that myself, but I only have the one Smile World card so far. So if I get a second one, I'll tear it up and I'll take pictures and I'll send it to you. But I'm not tearing it up when I only have the one. Yeah, it's actually a funny thing. I bring it around with me sometimes when my best friends moan or have something bad going on. I'm just like, here, smile, and hold up the card. I'm like the best, good friend, I guess, if I can say that.
You certainly can.
Yeah.
You are the best podcaster, sir.
Oh, well, I don't know. It's a bold statement. But yeah, thanks for it anyway.
Good.
Yeah, you actually mentioned briefly after the "It's Destiny" quotes that you had others in your head that you couldn't think of in terms of Aster quotes. I could give you a couple of other ideas if you wanted before we wrap up.
What else?
This is one of my personal favorites, actually. You can't hide from destiny.
You can't hide from destiny? Yeah.
Yeah, Aster's gotten a little older apparently. Aster's been smoking 6 packs of cigarettes a day now.
No, we're not going to go there. No, but sometimes, yeah, that's the thing. When I always have to have,
were there tears
in my ear? There we go. That's the Aster voice.
Were there tears?
So obnoxious. We got to find that. Got to find that episode.
Yeah, I'm determined now. Like, we're going to find that episode together for sure.
Oh, that'll be a hoot. That'll be a hoot. I will definitely post that on Twitter.
Yeah, definitely. So that's all of my questions for you today, Oliver. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast.
Rory, thank you so much. It has been my pleasure, and I look forward. Anytime you want to do this again, you let me know. Be my pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be sure to let you know when we want to have you on the show again. So thanks again for joining us today, and take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Time to wrap up today's show. Make sure to check out our podcast links, check out our website, website.everythinggeekpodcast.com/EGP, check out our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekpodcast, check out our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast, check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/everythinggeekp, check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/official-everythinggeekpodcast, check out our Mixcloud profile, www.mixcloud.com/everythinggeekpodcast, email us at the following email, everythinggeekpodcast@gmail.com, check out our companion podcast, Everything Geek Comiccast, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekcomiccast. Make sure to check out the hosts' YouTube channels. Mine is www.youtube.com/user/septusdestroyers. Check out Oliver Wyman on Twitter. twitter.com/MrCoffee, and check out channel 1138 where we broadcast live from www.channel1138.com. Geeks out, everyone.
Yeah, there were very few. There was, I think, we did that. There are a few Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle episodes where we'd have 5 of us in the booth, and it was a hoot and a half.
In in coming back to the show, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. I don't know if he did it sort of before really checking with the producers, because once the producers came on board, like the conversation got to